gosh, tell me.
Pirate fact, right? About eye patches.
Hmm.
So I always assumed that pirates wear eye patches because they've been fighting
You
and
lost an
sort of
eye.
been skewered in the eye and lost an eye. Yeah, no, no, no. Apparently, they wear eye patches so that one of their eyes is permanently sort of in the darkness and therefore adjusted to low light conditions. Because then when
Okay.
they board a ship that they want to rob from or take over or something, when they go underneath and it's dark down there, they can just whip their eye patch off and immediately see better in the dark. You know, it takes you a
Oh
few
my
minutes for your
God,
vision
that's
to adjust to the
amazing.
darkness. So that's my little pirate fact.
It's amazing. Also, it makes me think you'd have a massive headache
Yeah.
if you've got to like do different things all the time. But if that's true, then yes, love that.
Yeah. Well, I got new headphones and a new webcam, so
Oh my
it's
gosh, you are
exciting
premium.
times.
Premium Simon is here to stay. I love it.
I'm ready. Let's do
Uh,
this.
Hello,
Hello,
and welcome to She Changed History. I'm Vicky,
I'm Simon.
and we are here just to share some history stories, really. Just histories from women that you may not know, but they are the most audacious and fantastic women, and we think you should know about them. We tell each other a story each week. This week's story is particularly audacious and particularly cool, and it's a little bit out there as well, so I'm really excited to tell you. Are you ready?
What have you got for us this time?
It's called Ching Shih, the pirate queen who ruled the seas.
Yeah, that's a
Sorry,
strong title. That's a
it
strong
is
opener.
brilliant. It was
Yeah,
so, thank God for AI.
you had me a pirate queen.
So imagine a world dominated by women pirates, a world where a fearless and fierce female captain commanded a fleet of thousands, outsmarting and outgunning the most powerful navies of her time. Meet Ching Li, the most successful pirate captain in history. From humble beginnings to a life of plunder and power, her story is one of audacity, ambition, and unwavering determination. Join us as we delve into the life and legend of Ching Shih, the pirate queen who defied expectations and ruled the seas. Boom. That
Incredible.
I
Is there
love it.
more
I
to the
was so
story? But
excited to tell you. I sent you a picture of Ching Shih, and she looks both audacious, ambitious, and determined in that photograph. She looks lovely. We've got an array of sources today. The main ones I'm going to hit on are a National Geographic podcast episode from March 2022, which is called Overheard, a History Hit article by Lucy Davidson, which is November 2021, and a History Ray Told article by this guy who tells history in a blog, and it's hilarious. And I kept it in because it was just the best. So, and there's going to be other ones that are in it. We'll put them in the notes at the bottom.
I can't even guess what sort of time this is from. A pirate queen. I'm
Yeah.
guessing
So
she's Chinese or Asian.
absolutely. So she's Chinese, which is really, I don't know anything about Chinese history. So we're going to learn a lot together. We're in the early 1800s, which is the Georgian era for us, but we're in China. But Qing Shi was actually born in 1775. And so there's going to be two timelines I'm going to share with you. I'm going to share with you the Chinese history timeline, and then I'm going to explain what Qing was up to and how that links in. Yeah, because I think it's
Cool.
important that you need to know both. Let's start with the Chinese one. So originally, piracy in China was basically a side hustle, but for fishermen. So the fishing season tended to be really good in the winter, but rubbish in the summer because of the monsoons. So you couldn't go fishing when there was a ton of monsoons happening. So come the summer, the fishermen were like, don't know what to do. You know what we'll do? We'll loot. And we'll steal some stuff. So it was very like a seasonal, like that summer when you're like year 11, year 12, year 13, and you have
Yeah,
like 3 months and you pick a job for 3 months, it's that.
I
That's
choose
what,
piracy.
yeah, so piracy was that in China for a long time. A typical pirate crew might have a couple of dozen men on one ship, but by the end of the 1700s, the Chinese pirates would become very powerful. So there was lots of these speckled ships around the sea. But what would happen is they would team up with a rebel group and they would overthrow the government of Vietnam. So
Wow.
already quite a big event happening. And then in return, the pirates got financing from the rebel group and they got experience in battles. So by 1800, this had grown and grown and grown to a couple of speckled pirates around the sea, to full-on squadrons, fleets. You know, that was a real turning point in the
So like
pirate
organising
history.
more like a navy.
Yeah, and also I think overthrowing the government helped. Like,
Yeah.
that's always one big thing, isn't it? But even with these squadrons and fleets, they still fought each other in those squadrons and fleets. They killed each other off. There was battles, like classic pirate movie images
Yeah.
in your head right
So
now.
like
Yeah,
pirate gang warfare between them.
absolutely. Lots of screaming, lots of bit of gunpowder here, all that kind of stuff. And then eventually they got smart, which is just what you were saying, and they ended up teaming up and collaborating. And that's when the Confederation came in and the pirates agreed to work together. The Confederation was another turning point in the Chinese pirate history. And it's when it became a little bit more professional. So it's like now you're in graduate job stage. Yeah, so you've done your A levels, you've gone to uni a bit, and we're in our first proper big job. So the Confederation outlined some ground rules. For example, there was a policy on how to register your boats. If you needed to talk to a boss, you had to go through this specific system of how to get to the boss. Piracy wasn't part-time anymore. It was becoming really professional.
It's professional piracy.
Yeah,
With
we're
bureaucracy.
ready. We're organized. We've got paperwork. We're sorted.
I've registered my boat.
Oh, what more do you want from me? So
this is sounding less and less piratey.
You wait, just you wait. So this is when Ching Shih comes into that picture. Um, I'm going to call her Ching Shih throughout, but she had many names. So she had her original name, she had a married name, and things like that. Ching Shih was born in 1775 in the coastal city of Guangzhou, which as Europeans would know as Canton. The city was so overcrowded that it actually spilled into the water. So what ended up happening was there's these floating villages, which sounds beautiful.
Sounds cool.
It sounds very Disney, very stunning,
Yeah.
that you could live on a little village on I imagine a calm lake.
Yeah, sort of common people just sort of wafting about, bit of fishing, maybe sort of plaiting flowers, things like that.
Gorgeous.
I'm guessing it's not quite like that, but
I don't know. I didn't see any photos, but let's keep that in our minds. So pretty much anything you could do on land, you could also do there, and that included visiting a brothel. So I know. So they had floating brothels, which they called
classic
flower
Disney
boats.
Flower boats.
Which I think
so
amazing.
Cute. Yeah, darling, I'm just popping to the flower boat.
And she wouldn't question that. She'd be like, "Of course, you can go to the flower boat."
Ideal.
So Ching Shih actually became part of these brothels. She became famous quite quickly in her area due to her beauty, poise, wit, and hospitality. These attracted several high-profile customers, such as royal courtiers, military commanders, and rich merchants. We're going to learn a little bit about Ching Shih's personality throughout this. So pick up on these things that I'm saying and just remember them for later. So Ching Shih apparently used her secrets she learned whilst prostituting to wield power over her wealthy and political connected clients.
That is sensible.
Yeah, it's very
savvy. Like honey trap, but for herself.
Absolutely. Just to point out, we don't have any Chinese sources for this, but that is kind of the tale that was built, and you'll see later on that is probably true because of what else happens in her story. She used this to her advantage. One of her clients was the leader of the Pirate Confederation, so that thing that we've just spoken about getting set up. His name was Zheng Yi. Eventually, he married So Ching from Canton. There's two stories about this. One is the classic, he asked her to be his wife. Classic, think Disney still. But the other version is that Ching basically persuaded him and she sought him out. She positioned herself very strategically that he would be one of her customers, and she planned this from the start. This adds to her portrayal as a highly astute planner and a political operator who recognized and exploited situations for her own benefit. Either way, they get married. So
I want to believe the latter of those. I base this on nothing. I would like to believe that the latter is true. Yeah, it's like you're talking about pirate confederations and flower boat brothels. My mind has gone off Disney now.
Yeah,
And
fair, fair,
you
fair.
know, if she's there, you know, higher end clients, if she's in that position, that's good sense. You want to,
Yeah. If anything, it makes
blackmail
me like
those
her
guys.
more, that side of the story.
Yeah,
That's like, yeah,
definitely.
you've got a bit of edge, you've got a bit of grit about you. Quite enjoy that. So Ching's gone from working on a floating flower boat to co-running a pirate fleet, right? When she got married, she demanded equal control of this pirate fleet as a condition of that marriage.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
definitely true then.
they got married in 1801. Marie says in one of the sources, where business acumen starts to display itself in a way she became the overall head of the entire confederation. So power has
Mm.
happened to Ching Shih, which is brilliant. And it kind of what we were just saying there, like I think what we were trying to get at is this rare, or was this the sign of the times, 1800s China? And one of the articles described female pirate leaders as a rare phenomenon. There was only one other woman commander, a Mrs.
Mm.
Hon Cho Lo, who was active in Hong Kong in the first half of the 20th century.
Okay, so
So,
quite a bit later then.
yeah, so pirate female pirate leaders were a thing, but yeah, maybe they were rare, and maybe that does lead to some of her tenacity as well.
Mm. And that's maybe my sort of unconscious bias coming along. But if you ask me to think of a pirate, I think of a peg-leg man with a big old beard.
You
That's
think
just
pugwash? Yeah.
okay, yeah. Pugwash, Captain Hook, Blackbeard, yeah, all of that, and like shanties and burly fishermen and all that.
100%. You don't
Don't
think,
think the wily
yeah,
Chinese.
absolutely not. So now we have a married couple running the Red Flag Fleet. That's what it's going to be called. I'm going to stumble on that a lot. So it turns out when you're a pirate captain, your chances of reaching old age are very slim, which means trying to make a pirate dynasty is very tricky. So the best that you can do is basically make a baby pirate, ideally a boy, and then,
Mhm.
if for whatever reason you don't make it to adulthood, you've got someone to give your legacy. But this didn't happen with Ching Shih and her husband. So, in order to secure her husband's legacy, what he decided to do was, and it's very important here, adoption slash kidnap a sexy young fisherman.
There's a lot to unpack there. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Like adoption rules were a bit different back then.
well, good question. So, the sexy young fisherman was called Shung Po, and he was going to be the son and the heir for Ching's husband, basically. So he was like late teens, early 20s. Like he had already had quite
Okay.
an established upbringing on the boats. He was a fisherman, that's why kidnap's probably very important.
Yeah, that sounds pretty sensible because I guess being a pirate baby, I mean, you're quite easy to drop overboard, or that must be a dangerous life being the pirate captain's
Also, you're not
child.
contributing to the ship, are you? Yeah, it doesn't really explain why they chose to do that, apart from they wanted to secure that legacy and quickly. So Chung Po came into the scene. Adult adoption was actually, a perfectly normal thing to do in Chinese culture at the time. They trained, it says here, Chung Po had a great adult childhood on the ship, training to be a pirate captain. And it says also for some reason shagging his adopted pirate dad. So that also happened. It's very important to note that the husband and the adoptive son had sexual relationships, and that was less common. Like
Okay.
the adopting thing's fine.
Adopting's
The
fine.
sexual choices
Sleeping with your new
less.
dad, less so.
Yeah, I try not to think about it too much. It's you kind of was it a hole I wanted to go down in the research? No, no, it wasn't.
It was the
Um,
hole he wanted to go down. So
so
we should cut that out.
no, I enjoyed it. It was staying. So 6 years into their marriage, the husband dies. That is at the age of 42. Not much is known about how he passed away. I've put in my notes here, suspicious.
Sounds suspicious.
Sounds suspicious. Some accounts indicate that he was killed at sea by tsunami, while others insinuate that he was murdered in Vietnam. By who? Doesn't answer that question either, which makes me think, don't know. if he's got these relations going on, and maybe there was some jealousy. I don't know. I'm speculating.
Yeah, it could have been the tsunami. It sounds more like Desperate Housewives kind of scandal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So regardless of the circumstances, his death left Ching Shih in a very precarious position, and the Red Flag fleet without a captain. So we're at a point of jeopardy. The obvious choice was Xiang Po, her son slash ex-boyfriend of the dad, as he is the second in command, but Ching Shih was having none of this, which I fully appreciate. So she decided, stick with me here, she decided to marry the adopted son. So he's been having relations with the dad, and now he's together with the mum. And the reason she does that is because that cements Ching Shih's, that cements her leadership.
So it's like
Because
it's a sensible power move.
absolutely.
And I'm really
And
glad
also
he's
probably
adopted.
get one over on her
Yeah,
husband, maybe. Maybe, I
yeah.
don't know. Yeah.
It's an enormous relief he's adopted slash
Oh
kidnapped.
my gosh, this story would
Not.
not make it on the podcast, Ricardo. If not. So with the second marriage, she takes control of the Red Flag fleet in its entirety. The pirate confederation was powerful but precarious. The system was mostly based on personal relationships, and if the other pirates turned on her, it could all fall apart. So she could put her admin skills to work. Ching Shih first did a couple of things to kind of secure her power. She wanted to cement this and cement it hard and quickly. So what she did was implement this thing called a code of conduct. I don't know if you've seen like movies like Pirate of the Caribbean. It's quite common in movies that they say the pirate code, and it's
Yeah.
this elusive thing. This comes directly from Ching Shih. This is
Oh,
her
wow.
code. Yeah. Do you want to learn about the code?
Tell me more about the code.
Would you like some pirate code specifics? So only Ching Shih could authorize an attack, number one. If there was any other attacks that she didn't action, the people who put those in would be punished by beheadings. So she decides who, what, where, and when. If you deserted your post, your ears were going to be cut off. If you deserted your post 2 times, you would then be beheaded.
Okay, I'm guessing beheading comes up quite a bit in these.
It's a theme, I would say.
Okay, yeah.
If you raped anyone, you would be beheaded.
Good.
If you had consensual sex without Ching Shih's permission, that also meant a beheading.
Oh, she really did want power over it all, didn't she?
Oh my gosh, she wanted everything. So the man would be beheaded and the female partner would be sent to sleep with the fish, which made me laugh a lot. Pirates had to marry female prisoners before they could be ravaged. Cheating on your new spouse or treating her poorly was also punished by beheadings. But probably the most important part of the code was that the loot, any loot that was gathered by superiors, would be distributed fairly. So if you didn't do this, you would get beaten. But then if you did it again and again and again, so if you tried to keep the loot for yourself,
hang on, let me guess. Beheading.
100% right. See,
No,
you would have been there. You would have sorted this out.
it's brutal, obviously. Apart from some of it, it's difficult to. I'm not saying I endorse beheading. I've got to be careful here because I don't actually want to behead anyone.
Should we just put that as a baseline?
Yeah. Yeah, just for the record, don't want to behead anyone. But like a punishment for raping, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then the other things sound really sensible when you've got such a rabble on your hands, as I'd imagine pirates are, and keeping that semblance of control. But that's a really good carrot, the way that it's all dealt out equally. So like removing that incentive for people to go on there, do their own thing or revolt against the leader, sort of keeping them all happy. Everyone pull your weight, you'll all get something.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons she became so popular and her power spread so wide. So whenever they unloaded their stolen treasure, there was a system for dividing it up fairly. That's the trick, isn't it? So 20% of the captured goods would be allotted to the people who actually did it. So that's like the booty. And so the remainder 80% went to communal treasuries. And the article I was reading actually compared it to a Scandinavian welfare system that we have today. So she was
Yeah,
definitely on the right money.
Norwegian Wealth Fund or something, the sovereign
Yeah,
wealth fund that they
I
have.
think it does sound like that, doesn't it? Yeah.
And I guess that
So
I've never been a pirate, but I suppose if there's a particular bounty that you really want, before this, you would have killed other pirates to get there first. You're all racing for that jackpot, aren't you? But
yeah,
in this case, you get some danger money for actually doing it, but otherwise,
yeah,
nobody's losing out.
100%. So in those days, the pirates had a lot of booty to pay out. They created a steady revenue stream by forcing this is the other thing I like it wasn't just one revenue stream. You've got lots of revenue streams. So they forced other ships to pay an expensive fee for not being attacked. They even issued official passports to the ships that paid up. Fishermen wanted a piece of that, so in groups of hundreds at a time, they gave up fishing and then joined the Ching Shih's fleet. And one of Ching Shih's favorite tactics was to sneak up on an unsuspecting ship. And if you couldn't outrun the pirates, you'd better surrender anyway. So otherwise they'd have no mercy on you whatsoever. The fighting was primarily like hand to hand. They did have some cannons and guns, but they weren't au fait really in that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And then one of the things that really made me laugh was that pirates also improvised stink bombs out of gunpowder. So like when you were in year 7 at school, throw
Yeah.
a stink bomb run away. They did that. They did that and it worked because it would distract them and then they would catch the crew, tie the crew up and beat them and then steal all the loot.
That's embarrassing if you get caught out by a
It's,
stink bomb. Yeah.
it's so cartoon comical, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
brilliant.
A lot of the things they're doing sound like the mafia. Maybe not the modern mafia as such, but like the protection racket stuff.
Okay.
Sounds
Yeah.
quite mob-like.
But by far, the worst torture was saved for the Chinese Navy. By this point, the pirates had grown so powerful that the Chinese Navy didn't really have enough money or manpower to stop the pirates' attacks. The
Wow.
Chinese should really have learned how to say that. King Quin dynasty naturally wanted to put an end to the Red Flag fleet.
And how big was the Red Flag fleet at its peak? How many ships did she get on board?
At its peak, well, 2,000 ships, 80,000 men. So we're talking a lot. That is an
Flipping
awful
heck.
amount of people. It's like a city, isn't it? Like a moving
Mm.
city. Mandarin Navy vessels were sent out to confront the Red Flag fleet in the South China Sea, but after just a few hours, they were decimated by the Red Flag fleet. Ching Shih used the opportunity to announce that the Mandarin crew would not be punished if they joined the Red Flag fleet. So that's how she was growing so quickly, and that's how she amassed this floating city
Yeah,
on the
smart
sea.
move.
So the Red Flag fleet grew, and the King Destiny lost a huge portion of its navy. If they had any government or military officials on board, they loved beheading them, which is probably not a surprise. Sometimes they would take their hearts out and eat them because they thought it would give them that military prowess. So again, it's all about power, isn't it?
Yeah, that is brutal. That sounds quite in line with Chinese medicine and like how they'll grate up a rhino horn or something to give them extra vigor.
So another thing they did was they would turn Navy sailors into shark food by sailing,
Okay.
by nailing their feet into the deck, hacking them to pieces and throwing them out in the water.
Oh, flipping heck.
Yeah. So this absolutely torturous reign carried on for about 3 years.
Do you think it was the rules that kept people in line? Were they all like, oh, actually, this is pretty nice. We'll just go along with this? Was it the overwhelming threat of violence? Was there any sort of uprising against her that was planned, or how did she protect herself from all of this? Because some people must have been
Mhm.
unhappy about the beheadings.
I don't know. I think it's quite a cushy life, isn't it, as well? You got to think their alternative is fishing for 6 months of the year.
I guess so.
So
Yeah.
maybe it's just a more lucrative life.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of them were blackmailed and coerced into it anyway, so they probably didn't get
Mm.
any choice. But it's important to note that there are lots of women in her pirate clans led by Ching Shih. For example,
Okay.
they do the cooking, the laundry. Many of the male pirates even brought their wives and kids along to the ships. They did leave in extremely close quarters. Sometimes an entire family would be in a really small area, so like 4x4. But it's really important to note that women's weren't always stuck in these supporting roles. Ching Shih also led a group of warriors, female warriors, and they were very faithful to Ching Shih. They would always stand by her. side when they were fighting. And they'd fight battles together. So very
That's
much
badass.
like this. Yeah,
Sound like kind
very
of
tribal.
Amazonian sort of.
Yeah, like very tribal, very. There's always like those power scenes in movies, isn't there, where they start at the heels and then they scan up to these women in amazing power suits and stuff like that. Is very much women against the world. So Ching Shi's in like her peak, right? She's got her
Okay.
Amazonian women around her. She's got millions of people and ships and everything. She's living her best life. The Emperor of China, meanwhile, he's an unhappy
It's
bunny.
not having a great time.
He's completely humiliated that a woman of all things was controlling an enormous part of the land, the sea, the people, and the resources which technically belonged to him. Obviously, all these attacks weren't really working either because he just kept losing the navy every time he put them in. He did attempt a peace offering to the pirates of the Red Flag Fleet. He put this like olive branch out to Ching Shih. At the same time, the fleet came under attack by the Portuguese Navy. So the Portuguese Navy, they're pissed because they've been defeated twice before. So Ching's already had them twice.
Oh, by Ching Shih, I guess they've got a
Yeah,
lot of like trade and shipping across there as well, aren't they? So they're
absolutely. And
interested around the world.
yeah, so this time they've come prepared with superior supply of ship and weapons. As a result, the Red Flag Fleet was absolutely devastated.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Because I guess it's still just a collection of fishing boats and things like they're overwhelming them with numbers and stink bombs, but against a properly equipped navy, it's probably a bit more difficult.
so the way she retires is by accepting this offer from the Chinese government. So I think it was like serendipity that they almost happened at the same point, and she was like, "Well, I've got a really easy out right here. I've got,
Yeah.
this great offer on the table." But that doesn't mean she just accepts the offer from the Chinese emperor. She then uses all her skills that we've learned all the way from her young adolescence up to now to negotiate her way to a very, very cushy retirement. She agrees that the government will stop trying to kill her. Number one,
Quite an important
you'll
one to get
live.
on the list.
Absolutely, if this is going to work.
It's amazing that so the government's just making her an offer to stop rather than destroying her, eliminating it.
They
They're
just
just
want,
at this
yeah,
point doing
they're
anything
just
to
like,
get
calm
her.
down, Ching.
Wow.
Calm down.
God's sake, Ching.
They pardoned almost her entire crew, which according to this source was about 17,000 people at this point. So
Wow.
maybe because they couldn't hold them all, because that's so many, isn't it?
For someone so keen on beheading, that's a very altruistic thing to do, isn't it? To not just worried about herself.
Also, they let her keep all the stuff that she's stolen, like all the loot, all the jewels and the whatever that she's got it. She doesn't have to give any of it up, even though she stole them most likely from him.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, she wants them to pay a very comfortable pension for the rest of her years.
She's incredible.
And the reason she justifies that, look, I've given you my ship. You can keep my ship, you can park my ship there, but I want you to pay me for giving you the ship back. And that's how she works it. So she's like, it's fascinating. It's so cool that
It's
she
pretty
managed to
remarkable,
twist
isn't
that,
it?
isn't it?
It makes me think about like we talk a lot in the UK about people of privilege and the Oxbridge crew and the Eton crew fill up so many positions of power and the number of public school people who end up
Yeah,
high
we
up in
do.
government. And so it's still to this day, there are lots of politicians and leaders who haven't had that privilege upbringing, but still seems to be more so, or at least a good combination of both privilege and ability. But then you think of all these people who've got an innate ability to be, I don't want to say wonderful because it sounds like she killed a lot of people. Not endorsing, that side of it, but she was clearly socially very smart, business-wise very smart. She was really good at controlling and manipulating and managing people,
Yeah.
negotiating. She had all of these skills that if she'd have started off with some privilege, I wonder what she could have then become in like a legitimate enterprise rather than piracy. But she just made the best out of what she had, didn't she?
Yeah, I love that. I think leaders, not all leaders, obviously, they have this certain amount of charisma. So she must have had something about her
She
to
must have done.
entice all those women to support her as well, or to hold that. There must have been something what's the word? enigma. What am I trying to
Enigmatic.
say? Yeah, around her.
Yeah, and
Well,
like coming up, and you think that prostitution. My main reference to prostitution actually is Les Mis, where
yeah,
like
fair.
when everything's gone wrong,
Yeah.
the only thing you can turn to is selling your body. But to
And this is
then
what we were
use
saying
that
on the
as an
last
opportunity.
episode. Yeah. So the last episode we were saying sometimes you have nothing to lose, and sometimes that's a really good position to start from, isn't it?
Freeing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I've never really been in that situation, but I imagine it's like quite, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's a theme, it's just an interesting theme. As part of her negotiation skills, she gets the government to annul the adoption of her son slash husband. So Chong Po. So she no longer is officially his mother, and she could actually marry him for marrying him. You know what I mean? So
It's a
that
fairy
makes the
tale.
whole. Is it? I feel like that's better. I think it's a little bit
But it's
better.
slightly better, yeah. And I feel more comfortable about it as well because it sounds like they didn't know him when he was an actual child.
Yeah,
Like they
yeah.
didn't raise him. He was just
No,
sexy fisherman, you know.
he was just a sexy fisherman, and
Get involved,
I've seen some sexy fishermen, and
and you
so
want to make it a 3.
so she took them up on this offer, which why wouldn't you take them up on this offer that you've managed to get all your boxes ticked? Absolutely
She's got
insane.
all the benefits of pirating without ever having to be a pirate.
Insane. And so then she goes into retirement. What she does with her retirement is she opens a casino. Um uh, Honestly, it's true. It's true. It's true. It's true. And then the casino has a bit of like a brothel on the side because that's her.
Okay.
That's where we know her from.
Core competencies.
We know that Chong Po raised through the military ranks, so he actually he went legit, and they actually had a son together. We also know that Ching Shih died peacefully at the age of 69, and apparently she was a businesswoman until the end.
Wow.
And that's kind of where her story ends. You don't really hear much about Ching Shih as the pirate. Like you said, when you think pirates, you think Jack Sparrow, Blackbeard, you think all these things. You don't think of this insane story with a gazillion twists and turns. Apparently, she got a cameo played by Takeko Fisher in the third Pirates of the Caribbean film.
Okay.
But they didn't really name her, and it didn't really
That seems like a missed opportunity.
Yeah, because this bloody story, it didn't touch that on at all.
It's probably for the best, actually, because this story ain't Disney, is it?
It's not, it's not Jack Sparrow fumbling through with a pineapple in his hand or whatever. No, it's not the same. It's not the same. However, it's one of the best stories I've ever read and learned. And who knew that she was the most successful pirate of the sea, hands down.
Ever.
If you're talking about people of all time, if you're talking about people, resources, battles won, she's top of the tables, top trumps all round.
And such a graceful exit from it as well.
Such
really
a stonker
impressive.
of an exit. How cool is that? But yeah, it's so interesting, and I think we should all shout about her. So,
yeah. What sort of little bit of Ching Shih inspiration are you going to take from this? What can we learn from Ching Shih in the modern world?
Ching Shih? Negotiate your bottom off in every scenario.
I'm really taken by the sharing out of loot and how she organised that. That, not knowing much about it, I would guess that played a big role in keeping that company together. Because, if you run it as a dictatorship, dictatorships fail because eventually people get tired of it, and eventually there's enough of an uprising from one side or another to put an end to it. So you've got to keep people happy, and it obviously wasn't best for her in the short term, or best for the individuals in the short term, to be sharing out this loot.
Oh God, that's much more profound than mine. I think I heard something from one of my business mentors the other day, and she was like, you get to decide what leader you want to be. And, just because Bill Gates leads a certain way, or just because somebody in your industry has led a certain way before, like, you make the rules. You don't have to be this 5 a.m. hustle club. You don't have to be, like you say, the greedy cat. Why can't you give your wealth away? And why can't you share that out? And actually, maybe she made her own rules, and that's quite cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And we're maybe moving away from. I hope we're moving away from like the
From the
alpha male.
beheadings.
Well, definitely from the beheadings. We haven't beheaded anyone in my company for at least a year. But yeah, this sort of more altruistic. There's some phrase about when the tide rises, everyone rises with it. Yeah, I generally like her approach.
Cool. She's a
Good story,
cool cookie.
Vicky.
Thank you.
Mm.
And thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Leave us some comments.
Leave us some great review, subscribe, all those things.
All of
And
that.
if you have a story that you want to share with us, please do. We've set up a Gmail now because we're very organized. It's shechangedhistory@gmail.com. If you have any cool ladies in your family that you want to shout about for whatever reason, give them to us and we'll shout them about. That'd be so cool.
Excellent.
All right.
Okay. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, folks.
See you soon.
Cheers, Vicky.